There is a moment, and you may have already lived it without knowing what it was, when something in the room changes. Before you say a single word, you walk into a family gathering, or you sit across from someone you have loved for years, or you answer the phone from a parent whose voice has always carried a particular weight, and something is different, not in them, in you. And because it is in you, they feel it immediately. They may not name it, they may not even be conscious of it, but their response shifts, their tone adjusts. There is a flicker of something in their eyes, not anger exactly, not yet, but a kind of scanning, as if they are trying to locate something that used to be there and is now inexplicably missing. What is missing is your availability, not your physical presence, not your words, not even your willingness to sit in the same room. What is missing is the invisible extension of yourself that you have been offering without contract, without acknowledgement, without even your own conscious awareness for most of your life. That energetic posture of readiness, that slight leaning forward in the chest, that quiet, almost imperceptible rearrangement of your own emotional state to make room for theirs. You did not plan to stop doing it. You may not have even known you were doing it. But something in your nervous system has begun to withdraw the offering, and the people around you, the ones who have been receiving it, feeding from it, building their own stability on top of it, can feel the ground shift beneath them. And here is where it becomes psychologically important, because what happens next is not what you expect. You expect relief. You expect that when you finally stop carrying what was never yours, the world will thank you, or at least leave you alone. But it does not. What happens instead is disturbance. What happens is accusation. What happens is a sudden, disorienting wave of guilt that rises up from somewhere so deep inside you that you cannot tell whether it belongs to you or was placed there long ago by someone who needed you to carry it. And the guilt says the same thing it has always said. It says you are selfish. It says you are abandoning. It says you are cold. This guilt is not a feeling. It is a structure. It was built early, and it was built well. And it has been functioning as a load-bearing wall in the architecture of your psyche for so long that when it begins to crack, everything around it trembles. You tremble, not because you are weak, but because you are, perhaps for the first time, refusing to hold the ceiling up for everyone else while your own foundation erodes beneath you. Jung would say, what you are experiencing is not a breakdown, but a withdrawal of projection. Not the projection you placed on others, though that too is part of it, but the projection others placed on you. The role, the function, the assignment given to you before you had language, before you had a formed ego, before you could distinguish between love and labor. Someone in your early world, a mother, a father, a primary figure of attachment, looked at you and saw not a child, but a container, a place to put their unprocessed grief, their unresolved anxiety, their unmetabolized rage, their loneliness, their disappointment in a life that did not become what they believed they deserved. And because you were small, and because you were sensitive, And because your nervous system was wired to detect emotional currents before they became visible on the surface, you received it, all of it, without question, without refusal, without understanding that what was being given to you was not affection but assignment. This is the beginning of what Jung described as the complex, not as an abstract clinical term, but as a living, autonomous system within the psyche that organizes perception, memory, and behavior around a single emotional core. In your case, the core was this: I am loved when I am useful. I am safe when I am needed. I belong when I disappear. That is not a thought, that is a psychic law. It governs everything. It governs who you are drawn to, who you tolerate, what you forgive, what you overlook, what you call love, and what you mistake for intimacy. It governs the exact moment your chest tightens when someone you care about becomes silent. Because silence, in the original environment, meant danger, not physical danger, emotional danger, the danger of being cast out, the danger of being seen as the problem, the danger of discovering that the love you received was never for you at all, but for the function you performed. Let us be precise here, because precision matters. When a child grows up in a household where one or both parents are emotionally unregulated, not necessarily abusive in the ways that leave visible marks, but emotionally volatile, narcissistically organized, depressive, anxious, withdrawn, or chronically disappointed, the child's psyche does not simply endure the environment, it adapts to it, and the adaptation is not passive. It is brilliant. It is a feat of psychological engineering so sophisticated that most clinicians do not fully appreciate its architecture. The child learns to read the room before the room declares itself. The child learns to feel the parent's mood before the parent speaks. The child learns to adjust posture, tone, eye contact, emotional temperature in order to regulate not themselves but the other, and this regulation becomes identity. It becomes the self. This is what you carry, not a wound in the poetic sense, but a structural adaptation that has been functioning as your personality for decades. You are not a person who happens to be empathic. You are a person whose empathy was forged in the fire of survival. And the cost of that forging was the loss of something you may not even remember having the right to your own emotional experience without it being in service to someone else. Now, consider what happens when that adaptation begins to dissolve. You are sitting at a dinner table. A parent makes a comment, not cruel, not extraordinary, just the kind of comment that has a barb wrapped in normalcy, a remark about your choices, a subtle correction, a sigh that carries the weight of 30 years of disappointment that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with what they never resolved in themselves. In the past, you would have absorbed it, you would have felt the sting, swallowed it, adjusted your posture, maybe laughed it off, maybe changed the subject, maybe spent the rest of the evening quietly managing the emotional atmosphere so that no one else would feel uncomfortable. But this time, something different happens. This time, You do not absorb it, not because you have decided not to, not because you read a book or practiced a technique, but because your body, that deeper intelligence beneath the conscious mind, has simply stopped reaching for it. The signal comes in, and instead of catching it, your system lets it fall, and the parent feels it immediately, not intellectually. They feel it in the same place they have always felt your compliance in their own nervous system, which has been calibrated to expect your regulation, and when that regulation does not arrive, they destabilize, not dramatically, not always. Sometimes it is a sharpening of tone, sometimes it is a sudden shift to coldness, sometimes it is an escalation, a bigger provocation, a more pointed remark, because the unconscious logic is this: if the old stimulus no longer works, increase the intensity until the old response returns. This is not cruelty, this is unconscious mechanics. This is projection seeking its object. Jung understood this with a clarity that most modern psychology still has not fully absorbed. He understood that relationships are not merely interpersonal, they are intrapsychic. The bond between a parent and a child, between a partner and a lover, between a friend and a confidant, is not simply a connection between two separate selves. It is a network of projections, identification, shadow assignments, and unconscious contracts that operate beneath the surface of every interaction. When you change not in behavior, but in structure, you do not simply change the terms of the relationship, you disrupt the entire projective field, and the other person, who may have no conscious awareness of what is happening, experiences this disruption as threat. This is why your withdrawal feels aggressive to them even when it is quiet. This is why your silence feels like punishment to them even when it is rest. This is why your refusal to engage in the old dynamic, the dynamic where you absorb, you soothe, you contain, for you forgive, you explain, you translate their emotions into language they can tolerate, is experienced not as boundary, but as betrayal. You need to understand this clearly, because without understanding it, you will interpret their reaction as evidence that you are doing something wrong. And that interpretation is exactly what the complex wants. The complex, that old, deeply rooted system built on the equation of love and labor, does not want to be dissolved. It has been your survival mechanism. It has been your identity. It has been the lens through which you made meaning of every relationship you have ever entered. And when it begins to lose its grip, it does not go quietly. It floods you with guilt. It whispers that you are abandoning people who need you. It conjures images of their suffering, real or imagined, and holds them in front of your inner eye until you relent, until you reach out, until you soften, until you offer yourself again as the container you were trained to be. But you have seen something now that you cannot unsee. You have felt something in your own body, in that space beneath the ribs where you used to hold other people's fear, that is no longer willing to carry what does not belong to you. And this is not a decision, this is not willpower, this is something far deeper and far older than the conscious mind. This is the self in the Jungian sense, the deeper organizing center of the psyche, beginning to assert its own authority over the complex that has governed you from childhood. The father complex, when it operates in someone like you, does not always look like what you expect. It is not always rage. It is not always fear. Sometimes it is an absence so complete that it becomes a presence, a father who was there but not there, a father whose emotional unavailability became the template for every relationship you entered afterward, always seeking, always trying to earn the attention that was never freely given, always measuring your worth by the responsiveness of someone who could not respond. You learned in that gap that love is something you must work for. That presence is something you must earn. That your natural state, existing, being, simply occupying space is not enough, is never enough. And so you performed, you achieved, you became indispensable, not because you wanted to, though you may have convinced yourself that you did, but because the alternative was the void, the silence, the terrible emptiness of being in the presence of someone who cannot see you, and knowing, in that deep animal place beneath language, that you are alone. The mother complex works differently, but arrives at the same destination when a mother is narcissistically organized, when her emotional needs take precedence over the child's developmental needs, when the child becomes the mirror, the confidant, the emotional spouse, the regulator of the mother's internal state. The child does not simply lose a mother. The child loses the right to have needs. The child learns that their hunger, their sadness, their anger, their fear, all of these are inconvenient. All of these are threatening to the mother's fragile equilibrium, and so the child does what any intelligent organism does when faced with an impossible environment. It adapts, it hides its needs. It develops an exquisite sensitivity to the emotional state of others, not as a gift, but as a radar system, and it begins to confuse attunement with love. You have been confusing these two things for a very long time.